What is up, everybody? Welcome to the MMA Engine and welcome to Probability for UFC Vegas 71. We have Curtis Blades going against Sergey Pavlovich. We have a 13-fight card to talk about. Going to be going through all the props here. As always, we're here with Uncle Weezy. Weezy, what is up? Are you looking forward to this card back in the Apex for this one?
Back in the Apex, back in the small cage, maybe see a little more violence than we've been used to seeing in the last couple of weeks that we've been in the bigger cage here. I'm looking forward to this one. There's some interesting fights. There's some lines I'm still kind of waiting for to drop, but not some bad spots. I think we can make some money this week, Brady, so let's chop it up.
Let's do it. Before we get into it, guys, if you guys can please leave a like on the video, subscribe here to the MMA Engine. Me and Weezy go live every Monday, 6:30 Eastern Time, breaking down some props. Do want to shout out the chat before we get started as well. We got Buffo, first one in here. We got Propaholic, Daz, Victor De Jesus, Grateful Dude. We got Rob, Silky B. What is up, guys? Don't forget to hit that like. We do appreciate it here at the MMA Engine. All right, I say we get into it. Weez, Tajik as well. I see you in there. What is up? All right. I say we start with the first fight on the card and a fight that I'm really looking forward to. We got Diniz Bakary going against Brady. He's stand here. We will take a look at the odds. We have the over-under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 is plus 125. The under 2.5 is minus 155. The fight goes to decision plus 155. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 190. Weezy, what are your thoughts on the first fight of the card?
Well, we see a lot of red over here. When we compare that minus 190 fight doesn't go to decision, which is a 65.5% implied probability, to the benchmark for the division, only about 49% of bantamweight fights finish inside the distance. We're overpaying by 16.6% when we compare the implied probability of the line to the benchmark for the division. When we look at the combined performance of these two gentlemen, they're only finishing inside the distance at a 50% rate combined. We're paying 65% here. And these guys are actually going to decision at a slightly higher rate than what the rest of the division does, which is 48%. So this is definitely a spot where the fight goes at plus 155, underpriced almost 12% according to the benchmark. And 50% of their fights have seen the scorecards. And with Brady Heastand, it's 100%. So I guess it depends on, I kind of feel like a fight doesn't go to decision bet here. You're probably better off going with Batgarel by knockout, because that's probably how this fight ends, because Batgarel has 3 wins in the UFC and they're all by first round knockout. So every fight that's been out of the first round for him, not only has he not finished the fight himself, but they've all been losses. So, this could be a spot where if you like Batgarel to finish, maybe you go with an under 1.5. But in terms of what the analytics are, and in terms of what I see, Brady, win or lose, is a grappler that really goes after the grappling. We can count on him to be going for takedowns, to get down on his opponent's knees and work on getting the fight to the ground, and then working those scrambles and getting the dominant positions, getting to his opponent's back. So because I'm on the Brady side of this fight, I'm liking these overs, and they're plus money, and the analytics like them too. So in particular, the fight goes to decision because we have seen 50% of their fights go over 2.5, but 50 also went to decision too. So, and all 50% of those also started round 3. So when the fights are finishing, they're finishing early. So I kind of like the fight goes at plus 155 here.
Yeah, if I was to play this one, I'd say Brady by decision, which is plus 300, or Diniz by knockout or first round knockout, which is plus 375. Just because I really struggle to see Diniz winning a decision here. I think if he does win, it's probably a knockout and an early one. And if Brady does win, I see him kind of grinding it out for 3 rounds here. So that's kind of how I play it, but not a ton of interest on this fight for me. But yeah, that Diniz first round knockout, I feel like that's his path to victory, and it's plus 375 there. But probably get some better prices on some other books throughout the week.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Bet Online's fantastic for over-unders and getting them out, being first to market for them. But in terms of getting like fat decision props, sub props, knockout props, oftentimes they're not leading the market, so to speak.
Yeah, so I'll probably wait for that one there. All right, moving on to a very exciting fight. We have Karina Silva going against Priscilla Cachoeira. We have the over/under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 is plus 123. The under 2.5 is minus 153. They had the fight doesn't go to decision at minus 165 for a little bit. I was able to hop on. Loved that line quite a bit. I was going to play the under 2.5, but I waited and it paid off. They took off the fight doesn't go to decision for now. I'm not sure when they're going to reopen that and what they're going to open it at. But yeah, I like violence here. We have not only one, but two kill or be killed fighters here with Priscilla Cachoeira and Karina Silva. I think both are live for a knockout. And I think if Karina gets this fight down to the mat, she's probably going to run through Priscilla Cachoeira, who has just no ground game. So I love violence here. I'm assuming it's probably overpriced, Weezy. Out here.
Well, it's not that overpriced. Now, it's definitely overpriced when we compare it to the benchmark. When we have two kill or be killed fighters, we're going to expect to see overpricing on the 13th line of the spreadsheet right here. And we can see that, right? We're paying 60.5%, but only 35% of flyweight fights finish under 2.5 rounds. But then when we go to the Cachoeira and the Silva numbers, we see that 6 of their 9 UFC fights have went under 2.5 rounds. So that's 2/3. We're still underpriced by about 6% there when we compare that price to that price. And then we also see that while we're overpaying 25% according to the benchmark, we also see that Cachoeira and Silva are actually going under 2.5 rounds at 31% rate, better than what the division does. So this is still underpriced according to the individual performances when you combine them of Silva and Cachoeira. And then with Silva, you also have that added luxury of knowing that this lady has 19 professional fights and 18 of them have finished inside the distance. So you've got the definition of a kill or be killed fighter here. I love fight doesn't start round 3 here. As we can see, 66% of their fights haven't went to decision. 66% of their fights have went under 2.5. And also 66% of their fights haven't even started round 3 at the UFC level. So that is the place when we compare that number to that number, 27% break here, 31% break here, but a 34% break here. So when that fight doesn't start round 3 line comes out, and hopefully it'll be, let's see. It's probably going to be around minus 120, Brady. A little bit cheaper. We kind of tie up both fighters' best win conditions in there, and that's probably the way I would play it. Stylistically, there's absolutely no chance I'm playing an over here. I don't care how much plus money you give me. Plus 123 to sit there with my butthole clenched for 12 and a half minutes with Cachoeira and Silva going at it. They both hit like trucks. And Silva's submission game is nasty on the ground. So, yeah, the under 2.5 is the only available line right here at minus 153. And I feel like it's not just a good stylistic play, Brady, but the stats like it too.
Yep, it's probably my favorite play. It's my biggest play thus far. If anybody has 5 dimes, they do have the fight doesn't go to decision hanging out there. They actually open it up on 5 dimes. Listen to this. They open up the fight doesn't go to decision at minus 105 on 5 dimes. Imagine. Minus 105.
Brady, we've been seeing it for how long?
I'm
getting my VPN. I'm got the whole new setup here now, Brady. Now it's VPN time, baby. We got to get a 5 dimes account.
It's either that or move out of the country. Yeah, either one will work.
Yeah. Leave the good old US of A. I don't know, man. I don't know if any country besides Greece is letting a Greek man in. So yeah, no chance in hell, man. It looks like I'm stuck here in the USA.
But yeah, on 5 dimes, they do have the fight doesn't go at minus 185. Propaholic said he got in on the under 2.5 at minus 144 and said he was a minute away from minus 115 on that under 2.5 round. I woke up like 10 minutes too late, so I missed that one as well. Minus 115 is wild.
I woke up at 9 a.m. and noticed that the lines had already been out for an hour, and the ones that I was wanting to see were not quite where I needed them to be. So, yeah, went back to bed.
Glenn said under 2.5, 9 of their last 10 in their last 5 fights. Goodness.
Gotta love that, man. That is so good. That is so good.
Yeah, so should be a really good spot here for violence. I hope so, because I have 2.5 units on it. All right, let's move on to the next fight. Then we have, this is the Marshall fight, right?
Yes, Marshall Gomez.
All right, so we have Francis Marshall going against William Gomez. We have the over-under set at 2.5 rounds, the over 2.5 minus 155. The under 2.5 rounds is plus 125. The fight goes minus 130. The fight doesn't go is plus 100. I don't know. I kind of lean this one going to decision. I think if there is a finish in this fight, it does come from Francis Marshall. So one thing I was checking was the scorecards, no action for Marshall, but it was minus 325. It's probably what I'm going to be passing on. Weezy, is there anything that sticks out here to you?
Not really, man. I was just gonna go look see what these guys are getting finished inside the distance at on my advanced stats here.
I don't think Marshall's been finished, and then Gomez has been subbed once.
Yeah, so only 2 professional losses between the two of these guys. Marshall's undefeated. Gomez has 2 losses, one of them by submission. And even the guys that Gomez lost to on the regional scene were legit dudes. Saladin Parnas is a very good French fighter who might be in the UFC soon. And another guy that I've recognized, and I think that's the guy that submitted him, a little more of a journeyman. But Gomez's style, he throws with power on the feet, but he's kind of more one at a time, Brady, instead of being like the type of guy that's out there, putting together 5-6 punch combinations. Gomez is throwing one heavy strike at a time and trying to land. And then when that's not working, he's kind of getting in on in the clinch. And he spends a lot of time there, all of his fights. So I kind of figure like this, we're just missing too much information here. We don't know if Marshall is a durable fighter because he's only got 7 professional fights and we've never really seen him face a ton of adversity. And with Gomez, I kind of feel like we're still learning there as well. He's fought some decent regional scene competition. Both these guys are young, only 2 combined losses. One of these fighters is undefeated. So if we look at just the pure data here, we can see, the unders are just a little more overpriced in comparison to the overs when we compare them to the benchmarks. 2/3 of their fights that are 3 rounds outside of the UFC have finished inside the distance, and we're paying 50% for fight doesn't go to decision. Yeah, this is one that's just kind of like a stay away because we don't have enough data here, Brady. We got one fighter that's undefeated, so we don't really know how durable Francis Marshall is. And Gomez coming all the way from France for this fight. France to Vegas is a long flight, so who knows how well he'll perform. Staying away, dude.
Yep, I agree. I'm staying away myself on this one. I guess, like I said, I could see Marshall potentially getting a finish, but I don't know. It's not something I really want to bank on. So moving on to the next fight, I'm not sure I'll be touching this one either. We have Muhammad Usman going against Junior Taffa. The over-under set at 1.5 rounds. The over 1.5 minus 127 now. The under 1.5 is minus 103. The fight goes to decision plus 250. The fight doesn't go to decision minus 325. Yeah, that kind of surprised me because I could definitely see a decision here. And I think if it's a decision, it's Muhammad Usman going out there and wrestling across 15 minutes. I think if this fight does finish early, though, it's going to be Junior Taffa getting an early knockout. Another one where I really struggle to lay minus 325 on a fight doesn't go here. And in terms of these over-unders at 1.5, I could easily see it going either way. So it's one I'm probably staying away from, Weezy. Anything sticking out here from a numbers perspective?
Yeah, nothing's sticking out because we've only got one combined fight for these two guys at the UFC level, so we've got no UFC level data. And with Taffa, you got a guy who's basically a kickboxer, so most of his combat sports experience is not in MMA. It's actually in kickboxing. He's got more pro kickboxing fights than he does MMA fights. So we're missing information once again. And we got a guy coming all the way from Australia, long-ass flight. And then we got Usman, who, in my opinion, like if I'm just looking at these two numbers, Brady, minus 325 and plus 250, I'm looking for an excuse to bet the 250, right? Because it's the plus money number. We make more money if it hits. Well, Muhammad Usman, both of his fights that were in the house against really big dudes came down to decision. He tends to slow fights down to whatever pace that he wants to fight at, whether it's a grappling heavy pace that's a little bit more exhausting, or compared to if he doesn't feel like grappling, which I don't think is going to be the case here, you will see him kind of stay on the outside one at a time, not really a take one to give one kind of fighter, really kind of an in and out defensively responsible fighter. So, I mean, if I'm looking at a bet here, maybe I'm looking for like a fight starts round 3. The over 1.5 at minus 127 is not cheap enough for me to get in the way of it. It's not really even underpriced according to the benchmark for heavyweights here. So yeah, we're missing some information. I don't think Taffa's ever seen a third round as a professional. Fight starts. Yeah, I mean, it looks like only one of his fights has even started round 2 out of the 4. So, yeah, I'm staying away, dude. I'm not laying minus 325. I'm not laying minus 103 for an under 1.5 here when I don't really feel like Usman has any finishing equity. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a contrarian overplay. A fight goes or nothing.
Yeah, this is my 1-800-GAMBLER fight of the week. I will not be touching this one at all. But it should be an interesting one to watch, I'd say. All right, let us move on and then to the next fight. We have Rosa going against Norma Dumont. We have the over-under set at 2.5 rounds, the over 2.5 minus 350, the under 2.5 plus 275. The fight goes to decision minus 325. The fight doesn't go to decision is plus 250. Seems like a pretty straightforward fight goes to me, but I'm not running to the window to lay minus 325. Weezy, what's sticking out to you?
Well, 10 of their 11 fights at the UFC level have not just went to decision, but they've went over 2.5. They've went over 1.5. I mean, like, basically, we've had one fight between these two ladies, which is finished in round 1. Everything else has went the distance. And it was the Megan Anderson fight for Dumont, where Megan just went out there and starched her. If I'm not mistaken,
Yep.
that's the one that finished inside the distance. With Rosa, you've got somebody who's been to decision every damn time, all 6 fights. So, but God, I mean, minus 350, even at that price though, Brady, right? Minus 350 for the over 2.5. That's almost 78% implied probability. So we're overpaying by 22%, but 91% of these two ladies combined fights, and that's 11 of them at the UFC level. 10 of 11 have went over 2.5 rounds. We're underpriced there by 13%. These ladies go over 2.5 rounds at a 35% rate higher than what the division does. So, it is parlayable. It's absolutely potentially a parlay piece. The fight goes, and I would probably, let's see, they're giving us about a 1% break on the fight goes. So we should just absolutely take the over 2.5 here. They're not giving us any extra money to tack on those extra 2.5 minutes. So yeah, I would say the over 2.5 is a potential parlay piece here.
Yep, I agree. Because Norma Dumont couldn't finish that bum in her last fight. Who's that? Danielle Wolf, what was her name?
Yeah.
And then Rosa couldn't finish a retiring Cachoeira as well. So I don't see where,
tough, but still,
yeah, she's tough.
But these ladies don't have like this crazy power or anything like that. I mean, Lena Landsberg dropped Carol Rosa at one point in their fight. So, but yeah, I do like this over, but I'm not running to the window to parlay this.
Yeah, it's one that I absolutely do see going the distance, though, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, moving on, we have Yaya going against Montel Jackson. We have the over-under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 is plus 112. The under 2.5 is minus 142. The under 2.5 rounds opened at minus 210. Like, this is one I had my eye set on. One of the 3 I had my eye set on. I woke up and I saw the under at 210. And yeah, like you said, I went back to bed upset because I did not want to bet that. Went to minus 142. I ended up pulling the trigger there only for a unit, and only a unit because I am probably going to add on to Montel Jackson inside the distance or by knockout, maybe even in the first round. I just think it's a terrible matchup for Yaya. Montel Jackson, not only younger, but like an 8-inch reach advantage, height advantage. Yaya's 38. And then Montel Jackson has a ton of knockdowns as well. And I asked you, I was like, who has more knockdowns, Montel Jackson or Francis Ngannou? and it's actually Montel Jackson and by 3. The guy's 11 knockdowns. It's just wild. So I see him finishing Ronnie Yaya in the first round. This is more of a stylistic read for me. Like we talked about a little bit. The numbers don't really line up on this, but I really think Jackson should be able to go out there and finish him in the first round.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. But, that's a pure – if you're betting this under 2.5, trust me, the data hates it. It's a pure stylistic read. And there's nothing wrong with that stylistic read, Brady. It's just so easy to see Montel Jackson putting one of those canned ham fists right on the 70-year-old face of Ronnie Yaya and it just exploding like into a jelly. But we've got 24 UFC fights between Ronnie Yaya and Montel Jackson at the 24 UFC fights. 71% of them are going over 2.5 rounds. Only 29% of the time are these guys finishing. And I mean, but it's weird though, right? Because you see JP Bays getting dropped 4 times by Montel Jackson, but that fight doesn't finish. And you see a lot of other spots. He dropped Arce with a jab. Put him right on his ass with a jab. So it's a pure stylistic read, though. I mean, the analytics puke when they see where this line is priced, Brady, the underline. So minus 142, which is much cheaper than where it was, right? 58% implied probability. Only 42% of bantamweight fights finish under 2.5 rounds. So that's a 16% overpayment. Only 29% of their combined 24 fights have went under 2.5 rounds. We're paying 58%. So 29.5% overpayment there, 13.3% overpayment there. So here would be my advice. If you like the stylistic read for this under 2.5, bet it now. You got to bet it now because it's probably not going to get any cheaper than this. And at plus 112, we've got the biggest trifecta bet of the week here.
Ooh.
10.4% underpriced according to the benchmark. 23.6% underpriced according to the combined performance of these guys in 3-round fights at the UFC level. 71% of their fights have went over 2.5. We're only paying 47% here. And they're going over 2.5 rounds at a 13.3% rate greater than what the division does as a whole. So this is, if we could get that plus 180 where it was earlier, look at what the savings would be. 21% here, 35% here, and 13.3% here. The stylistic components would probably hate it, but it is what the data says. So, like I said, this is a data-driven show, and the data says that this is a horrible bet, but my stylistic read says that there's a very good chance that Jackson goes out there and shaves this dude's ass in the very first round.
Yeah, if this does go over, I expect at least like 5 knockdowns for Montel. The dude loves knocking guys down. So, yep, should be an interesting one going against the data. But, like I said, I'll also probably be adding some Montel Jackson KO. But, and if this fight does hit the mat, like Ronnie Yaya is he's a 5th degree black belt in BJJ.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't want to be on the ground with that dude. Even if you're on top of him, he probably rolls for a leg lock, gets a sweep, and then winds up on top. And then you've got to be really defensive down there. And I think that's why so many of Yaya's fights wind up going to decision, Brady. I mean, 9 of 16 have went to decision. 11 of 16 have went over 2.5 rounds. And that's because when Yaya does get guys down, you realize that you have to be very defensively responsible. And then you just wind up letting them lay on top of you, trying to hunt for subs, and you're just really trying to just be in a shell. And, we'll see how it all shakes out. But this is, you want to get on that under right now because, like, I even at minus 210, I think that there were probably some people betting that.
Yeah. I even thought about it, but I was like, no, I'll just wait for Montel inside the distance. But at minus 142, I did pull the trigger. All right, we'll move on to the next fight. Then we have Ricky Glenn going against Christos Giagos. The over/under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 minus 170. The under 2.5 plus 140. The fight goes to decision minus 150. The fight doesn't go to decision plus 120. Weezy, anything sticking out on this one?
Giagos' fights have finished inside the distance 6 of 11 times at the UFC level, but For Ricky Glenn, it's only 1 of 8.
Oh my.
So Glenn is really much more of a decision guy. Giagos, as a matter of fact, 4 of his 11 fights have finished in the very first round. So it depends, I mean, what do you think is going to happen here? Because if you're looking at those unders, you're thinking Giagos comes out like a man possessed, like he usually does. Tries to get 2 or 3 takedowns, throws a ton of volume, maybe gasses himself out. But the thing is that Giagos has had so many short notice fights that, I think sometimes when he's got a full camp, he looks a little bit different than what we expect him to look like, because we're so used to see him take fights on short notice and kind of come out there guns blazing, knowing that he probably won't be able to push a pace for the full 15 minutes. So it's not a fight I've got a good hold on here. But what I do know from what the data is telling us is that they're definitely shading the overpricing towards the non-violence here. The bookies are a little more scared that this fight does go the distance. So fight goes minus 150. That's 60%. Only 50% of lightweight fights go to decision. 63% of these guys combined UFC fights have seen the scorecards, but it's 87.5% for Glenn, and it's like 45% for Giagos. So I guess it just depends on which one of these guys you think kind of sets the pace of the fight. If you think Ricky Glenn's going to set the pace of the fight, it's probably going to go the distance. If you think it's Giagos coming out quick, coming out hot like he usually does, then the fight probably does finish inside the distance one way or another. So, but I don't have a good read on it, dude, stylistically. Do you?
No, not really. I would think like maybe Giagos early, Glenn late, but the fact that Glenn's fights have only finished once out of an 8-fight sample scares me away from that. And it was against Joaquim Silva, and that was the fight where Silva hadn't fought in like 3 years, right?
Yeah, neither one of them had.
Yeah, so that was kind of a weird fight. It's probably one I'm going to stay away from. I think it would lean violence just due to the plus money, but not a strong take on it.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, at least with the violence, you're getting the plus money, and you can kind of see that Giagos has only been a decision less than half the time. So maybe if he sets the pace, that's the way it goes. But there's nothing jumping out at me here.
Nope, same for me. All right, this next one's going to be very interesting to talk about, though, Weezy. We have Jeremiah Wells going against Matthew Semmelsberger. We have the over-under set at 1.5 rounds, the over 1.5 minus 155. The under 1.5 is plus 125. The tricky thing here with this one is both these guys are absolute killers, especially Jeremiah Wells. Wells can knock anybody out, and he could submit you on the ground as well. On the flip side, Semmelsberger has a ton of power in his own right. He can knock anybody out. So I feel like both these guys have paths to finish. It's just both of these guys are next level tough, next level durable. Matthew Semmelsberger can absolutely take a shot, and Jeremiah Wells has never been finished in his entire career. With that said, though, I think I would still lean violence because Jeremiah Wells, he kind of goes all out early on, and I'm not sure if he's going to be able to keep up that pace here. We haven't really seen him go into later rounds thus far in the UFC. Went out there and starched Blood Diamond, went out there and starched Court McGee, went out there and finished what's-his-face in the second round. We haven't seen him like late second round, third round, so maybe Wells does go out there, try to finish Semmelsberger early and gas himself out, or maybe Wells does finish Semmelsberger early. So I think I would lean towards that fight doesn't go to decision, and we don't have a line on it yet, but I have a feeling they're just going to completely juice it up. So yeah, on 5 dimes, it's minus 180 for that fight doesn't go to decision. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this one? Because both guys are so dangerous, but both guys are also so tough. I think it's a tough one to call.
Well, we got a 10-fight sample size here in the UFC, Brady, and 50% of them, 5 of 10, have finished inside the distance. But also 50% have went under 2.5. Also, 50% haven't started round 3. Also, 50% are going under 1.5. And then 40% under fight doesn't start round 2. So why pay 65%, let's say, 66, let's say they price it at minus 200 for the fight doesn't go, right? Mm-hmm. Why pay that when there's a difference between fight doesn't start round 2 of 23% between this number and this number? So we should get about a 20% reduction in price, which would mean we'd be getting plus money here. And we'd be getting plus money knowing that instead of paying for a 50% finish rate here, we're only paying for a 40% rate here, or the under 1.5 actually is priced pretty well here because that's 44% implied probability, but 50% of their fights are finishing under 1.5. I kind of get the feeling like, Wells is going to make this a fight that it's either going to go under 1.5 or then it probably goes all the way to decision. So Semmelsberger is not a guy that's going out there and getting finished a lot. I know Wells has even been 5 rounds before, I think, right?
I think so.
I think he's been 5 rounds once. It might have been a much slower paced fight.
Yeah,
but,
nothing.
I think that if you're going to pay for violence here, bring it down to that under 1.5 or the fight doesn't start round 2, because you're getting about the same finish rates for both fighters, whether it's fight doesn't go, or whether it's fight doesn't start round 2. So it's only 10% less from here to here, but it's 22% less from here to here. So you're going to get a lot better of a price in comparison to these guys' combined data the further down the line you go, whether it's the under 1.5 at plus 125, or maybe the fight doesn't start round 2 at around plus 150, 160.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Under 1.5, if anything. I don't know if I'll get there though, but it makes a lot of sense. I think I agree totally. I think if this fight does end early, it probably does end within the first round. So that plus money is kind of tempting there. I want to see what they have it on 5 dimes for. So on Bet Online, the under 1.5 is plus 125, and then on 5 dimes it is even plus 135, and I see a plus 128 as well.
Yeah, I think the under 1.5 is much better than paying up for the minus 190 here for the fight doesn't go, which is where it was when they had opened it for a minute. And because they closed it again, chances are you're not going to get minus 190, right? It might be more like minus 250 or even something like that. So, yeah, let's reduce the amount of time, get it to the under 7.5 minutes or the under 5 minutes, and then you're good.
I like that call. That is something I will consider. All right, moving on. We have the Lasman-Lucindo fight going against Brogan Walker. The over-under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 minus 255. The under 2.5 is plus 205. The fight goes to decision minus 260. The fight doesn't go to decision at plus 200. Yeah, this is one where I was probably going to take like a half-unit shot on Lucindo winning inside the distance. We saw what what's-her-face did. What was her name? Juliana Miller did to Walker last time out. I feel like Lucindo can get on top and do the same thing. The under 2.5 opened at plus 275. I would have loved a shot on that. I missed it. I got to 220. I took a little shot on that. Weezy, anything sticking out on here? I know we don't have a big sample size. I think we have like a 2-fight sample size on this one.
Yeah, only a 2-fight UFC sample size. But with Lucindo, you got a 17-fight pro record, and you got Walker, it's 9. So that's outside the UFC. And we can see here in the under 2.5, that 46% of their fights have went under 2.5 rounds as professionals. And we're only paying 33% here. But the troubling thing is that Brogan Walker's not a finisher. And, I don't even know if Yasmin has got as aggressive of a ground game as Juliana Miller does in terms of her ability to be able to get the fight to the ground and then really be aggressive hunting for submissions there. So, if anything, I'm playing the unders here because they're big plus money, right? And we would much rather pay or play the fight doesn't go at plus 200 because we get a much better break here in price compared to the under 2.5. We're only getting, an extra 5 cents here to go that extra 2.5 minutes that we get less in terms of them to be able to get the job done here. So I'd stay on the underside here. I would stay on the underside and hope that Yasmin comes out just guns blazing. She's just a kid. She's very young, 22 years old. So I could definitely see her coming out like a house of fire, maybe getting a finish. Brogan Walker is not a finisher. So she could easily take this fight to decision, but I'm not laying minus 255 because Yasmin is still a little bit of a wild card in my opinion.
Yep, for sure. All right. Yeah. So I might be taking a shot on like Lasman inside the distance. That's a good point. Walker, I think, has maybe one finish in her entire career.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, I think it's one in her career because she got finished at the UFC level, but outside, I think she was the one who got the finish, but might have been her first or second fight.
Yeah. So I think I'll probably be adding on like a half unit Lucindo inside the distance, hoping for like plus 300 or something like that, which is really nice considering she's a minus 300 favorite. I kind of feel like she has a solid chance of finishing here. But yeah, we'll move on to the next fight. We have Bobby Green going against Jared Gordon. We have the over under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 is minus 275. Under 2.5 is plus 215. The fight goes to decision is sitting at minus 250, and the fight doesn't go to decision is sitting at plus 195. Seems like an over here, but my goodness, that's laying a lot of chalk on that over. The only thing that would concern me here is the fact that Gordon has been knocked out a lot in his career, but Bobby Green's not some murderous power puncher. I lean this fight going the distance, but that is a lot of chalk to lay in this fight. Minus 250, I can't do it. Weezy, what's sticking out here?
Yeah, and even so, like you're looking at the minus 250 for the fight goes. That's a 71% implied probability, but only 50% of fights are going to decision. Big overpayment there of 21.5%. But you look at the big sample sizes of both fighters here. We've got a 31 fight sample size, Brady. 67% are going to decision. So you're even overpaying there at minus 250, So why not go for the unders here, right? Plus 215 for an under 2.5, or in my opinion, much better price. Plus 195 for the fight doesn't go. Check it out. 14% underpayment here, 16%. So we're getting about a 2% break, but also 22% of these guys' UFC fights have went under 2.5 rounds, but 32%. There's a 10% of these guys, 31 fights at the UFC level. So combined, these guys have had 3 fights that have finished in those last 2.5 minutes. So if we're going to take an under here, we want those last 2.5 minutes because Jared Gordon sometimes breaks dudes late in fights with his ground and pound and with his top pressure. And Jared Gordon's chinny. And Bobby Green hits hard. And then don't forget, Green got knocked out his last fight by
Dober, yeah.
Dober, who hits like a truck. Now, of course, Jared Gordon's not going to hit Bobby Green like Dober hit him, right? But the dude's coming off a knockout of his own. Jared Gordon's been chinny in the past. So I see why people are like, oh, it's a Bobby Green fight. You got to bet the over. But the fact is that more than 25% of Bobby Green's fights have finished inside the distance at the UFC level. And a couple of them have been recently. A loss against the guy we just spoke about, a win against that real estate agent, the number one. But the number one, we've said it before. The number one real estate agent in Long Island, you guys, that's no small feat. So it's not just any real estate agent that he did finish in the first round. So, yeah, man, plus 195. I think it's a cheeky, not overpriced way, plus money to play the analytics here.
I don't hate it. Let's see, because I think if Gordon wins this fight into the distance, I kind of lean it being submission. Has Bobby Green ever been submitted? He has twice.
Yeah, by Islam Makhachev was one of them, and I forget who the other one was. He got knocked out by Poirier, I think. Let me look. I've got it here. Gordon.
Wow, Bobby Green's been finished 6 times. Wow.
I did not know that.
Unless I did this wrong.
Let me look. Oh, God damn it. There we go. All right, so Green has got 14 losses, and it looks like 38 foot. So six finishes. Wow. He's been finished 6 times. Twice by submission, 4 times by knockout, but he's only been knocked out in the UFC. He's never been submitted in the UFC. 3 knockout losses out of 9 UFC losses.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, I don't hate it. I don't hate the shot whatsoever. Plus 195.
Yeah, it's the plus money side, and I just don't think we're parlaying this. I think stylistically, you could say, yeah, let's parlay that fight goes, right? Jared Gordon's not finishing anybody. Most of the time, Bobby Green's not finishing anybody. But when you take a little bit closer look here, Green coming off a knockout, these guys aren't exactly spring chickens. Bobby Green's 36. Jared Gordon's 34. Jared Gordon has died twice, you know, and he's died in the octagon 4 times. So, you know, it's definitely a little bit more leaning towards these violence numbers.
Sounds good to me. I like it. All right. Let us keep moving on. Then we have a very interesting one to talk about here. We have Bruno Silva going against Brad Tavares. We have the over-under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 is plus 105. The under 2.5 rounds is minus 135. And BetOnline does not have the fight goes or fight doesn't go, but going to take a look at 5Dimes. 5Dimes has the fight goes at plus 105 and the fight doesn't go at minus 135. So that's the exact same as that over-under that BetOnline has. So, Weezy, kind of a weird one here. I feel like there's a finish. It's going to come from the Bruno Silva side. I don't really see Tavares finishing Bruno Silva. So I guess it's just really, who do you think wins the fight? If you think Bruno Silva wins, you probably think he knocks out Tavares. And if you think Tavares wins, you probably think he wins a decision here. I personally am going the Bruno Silva side, so I'll say under. Weezy, what are you looking at here?
Yeah, you know, these the over 2.5, which was plus 115 earlier, was a trifecta bet, actually, the over. And you think, like, man, really, in a Bruno Silva fight? You know, that's terrifying to bet an over in a Bruno Silva fight. So I wasn't expecting to lean over here, but we talked about it last night, Brady. I was like, I'm going to be looking for violence in the main event, violence in the Cachoeira fight, violence in the Yaya fight, but I'm looking for the over in the Tavares fight because Tavares, he's got 10 UFC wins. Only one of them is a finish.
Yep.
You know, and then you also add to that, you're like, okay, 2 losses ago, Bruno Silva lost to Alex Pereira and didn't get finished by him. You know, did Mearshart sub him? I forgot.
Yeah, he subbed him.
He did sub him. Okay, I don't remember if Mearshart got the finish or not, but yeah. So we've seen Bruno Silva get finished by submission, but you don't really have to worry about Tavares subbing you. He's never subbed anybody in the UFC, at least. So yeah, the analytics like the overs here, and then we saw Tavares be very durable in a loss the last time out against Dricus du Plessis, but he has been finished, Brad Tavares, in his, let's see, I think 3 times?
Yeah,
3 times. Yeah, 3 times in the UFC, all by knockout. So Bruno Silva does have some finishing equity here. He will be the more likely fighter to finish, but Tavares has been pretty durable. And the guys that knock him out, I think it's Adesanya. I think it's
I know Edmund knocked him out.
Edmund Shabazian knocked him out, and I forget who the other one was, but they're top-notch guys. They're powerful guys. But Bruno Silva does have serious power. 86% of Bruno Silva's 22 wins are by knockout. That's 19 of his 22 wins are by knockout. So the data likes the over. I think stylistically, I like a Bruno Silva finish only prop. Do we have that? We don't have that number though.
Nope, they're scared to put it out, Weezy. They're scared to
put that out. They're scared to put out the Cachoeira violence.
Yep.
Don't be scared, homie. Don't be scared.
Because I actually am looking for that Bruno Silva finish only. Since he's the underdog, I'm expecting a solid price on it.
Let's hope, right? Let's hope that we get that.
Yeah. By the way, Tavares got knocked out by Tim Boetsch and Robert Whittaker.
Yeah. Okay. It was Whittaker. I thought it was Adesanya. My bad. All right. So Boetsch, every once in a while, would just catch people. Most of the time, he was out there getting his ass shaved. But man, when Boetsch hit people, they went to the shadow realm, man. So definitely, this is an interesting one, man. It depends on whether you want to go with the data or the stylistic read here. But the data likes the overs. I am not running to the window to only get plus 115 on an over in a Bruno Silva fight, because you'll feel dumb as hell if Tavares winds up sleeping in the first round. Am I right?
Yeah. The over makes a lot of sense to me, just because Tavares is tough. But I think my favorite play is going to be that Bruno Silva finish only, because I don't see Tavares submitting Bruno Silva. Supposedly he's a black belt, but he's been submitted like 7 times. I think he has to hold a record of being a black belt and getting submitted most times ever.
Yeah, there's definitely some guys like that have the black belt, and then you're like, that guy's a black belt,
Yeah.
What happens, man?
Yep. Yep. So yeah, finish only, waiting for Bet Online to get that out. We'll see what they put that at. All right, Weezy, we have 2 fights left. The co-main event, we got Ricky Simone going against Song Yadong. We have the over-under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 minus 181. The under 2.5 is plus 151. The fight goes to decision minus 190. The fight doesn't go to decision is plus 155. Weezy, what is sticking out on this one here?
We got a small trifecta bet here on the under 2.5 at plus 151. So I always like plus money trifectas because we're underpriced according to the benchmark. 45 or 9 of 10, 20 of these guys' fights have finished inside or under 2.5 rounds, but we're only paying 39%. So that's 5.16% underpriced. And then also 2.55% of is the difference between the line and the performance, 45%. So we've got about 10% of savings here when we add up this number, and this number. So that's pretty good. And we've got about the same amount here as we add 9.68 to 5.78, and then we subtract 4. It's going to be about a 10%, 11% savings as well. But I would rather get the fight doesn't go and get those extra couple minutes and get that 9.68% break over the benchmark rather than the 2.61 that we have here. It's an interesting fight, man, because I don't think, Ricky Simon's not really going out there and getting finished by anybody that's not Uriah Faber. And Song Yadong, I mean, he got finished by a cut in the Sandhagen fight, which he clearly wanted to keep going. And they let him fight with that cut for 2 rounds. But then when the 5th round started, they said, "Nah, son, we're gonna stop the fight." So yeah, man, it's an interesting one. The data likes the unders. Stylistically, I think this one probably does go to decision. But with where it's priced, I can't really endorse betting it.
Yep. Agreed. I think there will be opportunities to finish. Like Song hits like an absolute truck, and then Simone does have some grappling. So I think I'd be on the plus money fight. Doesn't go to decision, if anything. But yeah, stylistically, I probably think this goes to decision as well. So probably one I'll stay away from. But I'm not laying minus 190 on this fight to go to decision. That's for sure.
Yeah, because you're overpaying 14.4% according to the benchmark. You're overpaying by 10.5% according to the 55% finish rate of these 2 guys combined at the UFC level. And it's 5 of 10 for one guy and it's 6 of 10 for another. So there's really no divergence there. You know that you can count on those numbers. And you're overpaying in both of them. So it's hard to say, yeah, I'll pony up the minus 190. If it's minus 160, you're looking a little bit better. Minus 150, minus 140. Then you're getting to the point where it's getting a lot more fairly priced. And then when it's fairly priced and your stylistically read matches up, then you can bet it. But if you like your stylistic read, but you're overpaying, then it means now you can't just like your read. You got to love your read.
Yep, exactly. And I do not love it. So I'm probably going to be passing.
Yeah, neither do I, dude.
All right, Weezy. Let us talk about the most violent fights, not only on the card, but the most violent fight of the year thus far. Before we do so, guys, smash the like button. Let's get those likes up. We do appreciate everybody hanging out with us on a Monday. Yep, most violent fight of the year. We have Curtis Blades, Sergey Pavlovich, the over-under set at 1.5 rounds, the over 1.5 plus 120, the under 1.5 minus 150. The fight goes to decision plus 525. The fight doesn't go to decision already on a Monday is minus 850. I have a feeling FanDuel's going to put it at like minus 1600 here for the fight doesn't go. They always do that crap. But yep, obviously I like violence here. Sergey Pavlovich has not seen a second round in years, has not seen a second round in the UFC. And I feel like this fight is about as binary as it gets. Either Sergey Pavlovich takes off Blades' head in the first 2 minutes, or Blades gets on top and runs through Sergey Pavlovich like a hot knife through butter. I think this fight ends in the first round. I like the under 1.5. I already played it. And then I also like the fight won't start round 2. And then I'll also potentially be smashing an under 2.5 or some alternate line as well if that's playable. But yeah, loving violence in this fight. Most violent fight on the card by a mile. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one here?
Yeah, I'm calling it right now. I think this fight finishes inside the distance, Brady. You can mark it down, put it on the fucking chalkboard. I'll own up to it if I'm wrong after Saturday, but I'm calling it right now. So that minus 850, we can absolutely parlay that, baby. It's an 89% implied probability, so it's not going to help us much. But hey, this fight probably does finish inside the distance. But this is one of those cases where, if you look here, 83% of their fights have finished inside the distance, but 83% of their fights have also went under 1.5. So why fuck around with a minus 850 when you can fuck around instead with a minus 150? We chop about 30% implied probability off of the price of the line, and we still get all of the equity, because guess what? Curtis Blaydes has had 6 fights scheduled for 5 rounds in the UFC, and 5 of them have finished under 1.5 rounds. And Pavlovich has just never been over 1.5 rounds at the UFC level ever. He's never even been out of the first. So I definitely like the under 1.5 here at minus 150. It looks like an underpriced line going under 7.5 minutes in a 5-round fight, where fighters might be a little more likely to start off kind of slow because they're heavyweights. But look, man, even 50%, or I'm sorry, the benchmark is 50.77%. So even, like outside of guys like Blaydes and Pavlovich that are finishing at a crazy pace, even just general 5-round heavyweight fights, they don't usually go, less of them go over 1.5 than go under. So we're not really overpaying that much. We're only overpaying by 9.23% here, according to the benchmark, when in some of these other lines, like the Green Gordon line, we're overpaying 19% according to the benchmark, 21%. And that's for a minus 250 line. When here, we're only overpaying by 9.23% when we compare that 60% to the 50.77% under 1.5 rate for 5-round heavyweight fights. So all these analytics are for the 5-round fights, Brady. So yeah, minus 150, that's a bettable line, something that we should be getting to.
Yep, I like it quite a bit. And just for reference here, I was taking a look at the past lines for Sergey Pavlovich on these under 1.5. So against Derek Lewis, the under 1.5 was minus 165, minus 175. And against Tai Tuivasa, we had to pay minus 245, minus 250 for an under 1.5 in that fight. So I think we might be getting a solid discount here. Love the under 1.5, and I'm waiting for that fight won't start round 2. Hopefully getting maybe plus money on it.
Yeah, that would be sweet, because we would like to get plus money on that. And it's only, here's the thing. Blaydes has been under 1.5 5 of 6 times, but he's only been fight doesn't start round 2 of 6 times. So 3 of those 6 fights have finished in the first 2.5 minutes of round 2. So you kind of want to give Blaydes that second round to either walk out of his corner and get nuked by one punch by Pavlovich, or he gets that early takedown. Pavlovich realizes that if he doesn't look for the door now, this guy might be on top of him for the full 25 minutes, and he'll have a much longer hospital stay after having that monster on top of him for 25 minutes, rather than maybe just giving him your back, let him land a little bit of ground and pound, tapping the ground and saying, I'm out of here. So I'd rather play that under 1.5 here, because just because Pavlovich has never been out of the first round doesn't mean he's not going to slow down a little bit this time, because it's a 5-round fight.
Yep, that is true. I like it. All right. So what we'll do now is we'll kind of quickly go through our favorite spots. Weezy, what were the spots that stuck out to you the most?
Well, I love the under 1.5 for Blaydes Pavlovich here. I think that under 2.5, or the fight doesn't go to decision, for Cachoeira Silva, Brady, I think that that's a really good parlay piece. And I told you, and I want it on the record, that I think that Blaydes Pavlovich finishes inside the distance.
Hot take.
Yeah, hey,
the hot
look,
take.
Man, we're professionals, Brady. We get to have a hot take when we want one.
You're right. You're right.
So I'm going to put that hot take on Twitter too.
Okay.
And then I'm going to put, don't at me. Don't you fucking at me.
Yeah, I like it.
But in terms of any other fat numbers, nothing really sticking out, but I've got plus money numbers that I like, Brady.
Okay.
I like the plus 155 fight goes to decision for Heastan versus Batgarel. I like the plus 125 for the under 1.5 rounds for Semmelsberger versus Wells. And I like the fight doesn't go to decision at plus 195 for Green versus Gordon. I think that that's got some good value in there. And then we also talked about maybe parlaying the over 2.5 for Dumont versus Rosa at minus 350. But I mean, I think stylistically it definitely goes over.
Yeah.
But what are you thinking here?
Yep, my two favorite spots on the card are some type of violence in the main event, like the under 1.5. I already have that, and then the other spot I really like is the Karina Silva Priscilla Cachoeira. Either the fight doesn't go or the under 2.5 rounds. Other than that, yeah, I might be taking a look at some of those plus money shots, like the under 1.5 in the Wells fight. I'm tempted on that, and then also that violent spot in the Green fight at plus 195. You said right?
Yeah, plus 195. So it could be a small shot, quarter unit, half unit, but it's not the worst analytics wise, And you don't do the under 2.5 because, like I said, Gordon has had a fight finish in the last 2.5 minutes, and so is Green.
Yep.
I think it might even have been 3 of their fights combined that have finished in those last 2.5 minutes. So take the fight doesn't go, not the under 2.5.
I like it. And then other than that, like the finish only for Bruno Silva, something I'm looking out for. Yeah. And then I'm probably going to take some small shots on the Lasman inside the distance against Walker, and then the inside the distance against for Montel Jackson against Ronnie Yaya. But in terms of parlay pieces, I think there's a couple good ones. We talked about the Karol Rosa over 2.5. We talked about the Blades Pavlovich under 1.5. We talked about the Priscilla Cachoeira under 2.5. You think we can come up with a good PP this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe the Cachoeira Silva fight doesn't go or under 2.5 parlayed with like an under 1.5 or a fight doesn't start round 3 for Blades Pavlovich. I think that'd be the best way to go.
I like it. Right now, for lines available on Bet Online, the under 1.5 in the main event parlayed with the under 2.5 in the Silva fight, that's plus 176. But if we could get even safer, say the fight won't start round 3 in the main and the fight doesn't go for the Silva fight, and that would probably still be plus money as well.
Yeah, I think that's what we should do. Fight doesn't start round 3.
Yep.
For the main event, and then the under or the fight doesn't go to decision for Silva Cachoeira.
Yep, I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one. We've been getting let down on our probability parlays, but you know what it is, dude. It's like the fighters got to do their part.
Exactly.
TJ Brown. All I'm asking is that you don't get finished by Bill Algeo, and you can't even fucking manage that. I mean, I've asked him 7 times not to get shitty haircuts. Every goddamn time he comes in there with a shitty haircut, and I'm like, okay. Yeah, evidently you like getting shitty haircuts. How about this, TJ? Don't get finished by a guy that can't finish a banana for breakfast in the morning. And he goes out there and gets served in the first minute of round 2. You've got to be kidding me, man.
Yeah, as always, it's not our fault. It's their faults.
Always, Brady. Always. Never look in the mirror and accept responsibility. That's for losers,
Yeah.
Us winners, we always blame other people.
We got to blame the judges, the refs, and the fighters. It's never our fault. I like it. All right, Weezy, we did it. We finished right on time, about an hour here. Let the people know your plans for the rest of the week and where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on my YouTube channel, Uncle Weezy, tomorrow night, 10 o'clock Central Time for Just the Tip. We're going to break down all 13 of these fights. I'll give you all my track bets for the week, and we'll finish with Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. I'll also give you guys a greasy 4-leg parlay on my channel on Friday after the weigh-ins. And in addition to that, tomorrow, Brady and I, Gordo and Monk will be going live on Pub Sports Radio, 6 o'clock Central Time for the DFS show, where we will give you our best DFS plays and prize picks plays as well. So let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC Vegas 71, and good luck on all your bets.
Yeah, good luck, guys. I think it's a great card from a prop perspective. These last 2 weeks, just not a ton sticking out. This week's the opposite, so hopefully it works out. I'll be getting up my full card breakdown tomorrow. Check us out on Pub Sports Radio Wednesday for the DFS show, and then I'll be back on my channel Friday and Saturday for some more live stream as well. Thank you for watching, guys. Like, subscribe, and we'll talk to you very soon. Good luck for UFC Vegas 71. See you later.